Good afternoon. Welcome to the Right of Way Conference 2020, and welcome to our webinar today. I would like to know if you can hear me well. Please let me know first. Okay, thank you so much. Let's give 1 minute more for people to be connecting. Right now we have 49 participants, and we are expecting more participants to go. So right now, my name is Juan Barrera. I'm part of the USI Ontario committee, and I will be the facilitator of this webinar today. So I would like to welcome Steve Cooper, who is providing the speech today, the conference today, and yeah, in behalf of the Ontario Public Works Association, so the Ontario Public Works Association Road Management Committee is pleased to announce that going forward we'll be linking arms with the American Society of Civil Engineering and Survey Institute, called USI, the Ontario chapter, to co-host the annual Right-of-Way Management Conference. So for those who not be familiar with USI, I will try to briefly speak of who we are and why we linked arms to co-host the 2020 Road Management Webinar Series and Future Conference. So give me a sec here. So the USI, or Utility Engineering and Surveying Institute, it's an institute from the American Society of Civil Engineers, and we offer the professionals working within the utility pipeline engineering or survey and geomatics community the opportunity to network with others and shape the future of the industry by participating in technical activities, conferences, and development of the internationally recognized standards. And just to give a small brief, what is utility engineering? So it's a branch of civil engineering focusing on planning, position, design, construction and operation and maintenance, and of course, asset management of all utility systems, as well the interaction between utility infrastructure and other civil infrastructure. So we have a chapter in Ontario, and we would like, and right now, as part of our interest exactly to make us known and also make the discipline known, we have partnered with Right-of-Way, with the Right-of-Way conference here. So now we are the OPWA Road Management also and USI are jointly would like to announce that starting 2:30 we and going forward October will be Right-of-Way Management 2:20. Going forward, October will be the Right-of-Way Management Month. The intent of Right-of-Way Management Month is to promote and bring greater awareness through education to different challenging issues associated with the management of the public right-of-way. So for October, free educational webinars are free, will be offered every Tuesday and Thursday. So I would like you to visit rightofwaymanagement.ca and registration for future webinars. So, and we, Right-of-Way Management Committee, we are always looking for industry involvement. So if you are interested, please email info@roadmanagement.ca. So I would like to give a couple of housekeeping items before prior to the webinar. First, all delegates will be muted through the webinar to eliminate background noises. Q&A will occur at the end of the presentation if time permits. Use please the Q&A tab on the screen for for any questions. Please don't use the chat. Do not use the chat. And this webinar is eligible for the OACETT CPD programs and partial 1 hour fulfillment of the full day informal course and self-directed study. So a proof of registration and short summary of what you learned need to submit it to the OACETT for a webinar to qualify for the CPD. Information will be available on the website at the end of the week. So I will leave for the presenter, Steve Cooper, to talk about the webinar today. I'm gonna stop sharing the screen so he will share his as well. So it's the Crossbore Safety program. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Juan. You hear me okay?
Yes, I do.
Perfect. Okay. So thanks, Juan. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to have this discussion with everyone today, and big thank you to Lori in the background, making sure that I don't screw anything up too badly and keeps me on track. So today's presentation is going to be on crossbore safety. If you're not familiar with that, you will be by the time this is done. And as Juan said, we'll have some time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. First off, I just really want to give a little bit of context about Enbridge. It'll help with the presentation because Enbridge can mean different things to different people depending on where you're located. So fundamentally, Enbridge is made up by 4 distinct business units. There's the liquids pipeline that has, we have about just over 27,000 kilometers of liquids pipelines, and that delivers about 25% of crude oil in North America. So it's a pretty substantial network. Natural gas pipelines, we've got another 38,000 kilometers of that, and that provides 20% of the natural gas consumed in the US. Now there is a difference here. Natural gas pipelines is the transmission that feeds utilities, which will be the focus today, will be the utility itself, not the transmission of the gas through that pipeline network. I'll give you a little bit of a look at what that looks like. And then natural gas utilities, which will be our focus today, and as I mentioned, that's the focus. That's the utility side of the business. We have 3.8 million retail customers serving over 500 communities. And through that, we deliver about 40% of Ontario's energy needs. And then there's also a renewable power division, with solar, wind, and some other methods we have to create power. And through that, we're providing over 700,000 homes with power through those assets. And all that together makes us the largest energy infrastructure company in North America. So as I said, here's a bit of a map just to give you a little bit of an idea of what we're talking about. So the orange pipelines are the liquids pipelines. You can see they run throughout North America. The blue lines are those natural gas transmissions lines, which are getting the natural gas from where it's collected and moved out through to the distribution companies. That inset to the right is our European wind offshore projects that we have on the go. But for today, we're going to be focusing on that highlighted yellow portion in Ontario, which is the utility. And as you can see from here, it's North America's largest natural gas storage, transmission, and distribution company. You can see we're heavily focused on the southwestern Ontario, but we do extend all the way through Ontario, right through to the Manitoba border. So it's a massive footprint. Our values are very much safety, integrity, and respect. That's really important, and that'll come into focus as we move through this presentation. We have 170 years of experience in this industry, a lot longer. We've been around a lot longer than I have, even though some days I feel like I'm 170 years old, but today I'm feeling pretty good. So hopefully I don't forget where I'm going with all this. But yeah, so 170 years, a lot of experience in this business. We've got 3.8 million customers. We're heating more than 75% of Ontario homes. And then within this distribution environment, we have 147,000 kilometers of pipe, and that's servicing our mains and services. So mains down the streets and services to the homes. So as I mentioned, we've got like a lot of pipeline in the ground with those other divisions, but it really pales in comparison to the amount of pipe that's within the distribution company itself. And just an interesting fact here, that's enough to circle the world 3.5 times. So quite extensive network of pipes. And again, that's going to be very relevant as we move through this. So what we do in the utility business, well, we feel the quality of life for millions of people every day. So it's really, really important that we get that right. Our customers and our communities rely on us to deliver energy, deliver it safely, and make sure it remains uninterrupted. So that's very important. And if we don't get that right, really nothing else matters. So, and that's why this topic is very important to us, and you'll see why as we continue on here. Safety, again, #1 priority. We've invested $10.5 billion between 2012 and 2019 just to maintain the integrity of our system. So we invest a lot into that. Through that, we performed almost 40,000 pipeline inspections. We monitor our lines 24/7, and we do extensive emergency exercises, hundreds of them every year. Again, all of that is to make sure that we're operating a very strong and efficient network that we can respond to very quickly and maintain that safety and that integrity. So we're going to get right into it now. And when we're talking about crossbores, a lot of people have a question like, what exactly is a crossbore? So the standard definition is a utility crossbore is an unintended intersection of an existing underground utility by a second utility. So fundamentally, 2 utilities, you really don't want them impacting one another, but that's what a crossbore would typically be. Obviously, if that happens, you're going to compromise the integrity of those systems, which is not something you want. And in today's discussion, we're going to be talking specifically about gas lines and sewers. And you can see here, there's some imaging that I've put in place here to give you an idea of what that looks like, where a natural gas line is intersected with a sewer and gone through it. And that's where we typically see this type of thing. And I'll explain why in a little bit. But the real challenge here is you can impact a sewer and it can remain undetected for years, even decades, because it doesn't necessarily have an acute response immediately. There can be a crossbore in place for years before any kind of disruption occurs on that line. And that may or may not be because of the gas line itself. It could be just the hole that was created, the void can fill in, roots can get into it, that sort of thing. And that can take years to build up. So that makes almost a separate challenge in and of itself. And sort of that bottom right picture, if you take a look at it, that's sort of what we're trying to prevent here is a sewer line and a gas line. And then, someone comes along and tries to clear it and damages the gas line. So just to sort of walk back to the beginning. So how do they even happen? Well, like most utilities, well, pretty much all utilities today, we use trenchless technology to install our underground infrastructure. There's a lot of reasons for that. Obviously, it's very efficient, it's very effective. It allows us to put pipe and other utilities for the same reason, get it into the ground without impacting infrastructure. We can get underneath roads, we can get underneath rivers, trees, lawns, you name it, with a minimal amount of disruption. Unfortunately, though, that means you've got to make sure you're not impacting anything along the way because you can't really see it. So we get locates, we expose it to make sure that we don't cause any unforeseen damages. But sewers specifically are difficult because they tend to be non-metallic, so you can't use traditional locating equipment to find them. They don't usually have a tracer wire, which is what you would have in place in those type of scenarios. The records could be incomplete or outdated. and most municipalities don't provide sewer lateral locates, and sewer laterals fundamentally are, a sort of part of it's in the municipal environment, part of it's in the homeowners, part of the lawn, so to speak. And that means that, there's a bit of an ownership gap there. So homeowners obviously aren't prepared to go out and locate their own sewer lines. So it can be very difficult to find them. So just what that might look like. So here's your typical residential street. There'll be a sewer line running up the middle of the road. And that red portion that you can see there, I don't know if I can highlight it here, but this red portion would be what would be owned by the municipality. And then from the property line into the house would be the homeowner's portion of that sewer. So that's all fine. And then along comes Enbridge or any other gas utility for that matter. And we install a main along the right of way, and we install a gas service up to the house. And as you can see here, that creates a couple of opportunities in this scenario where we may impact the sewer line. So this is where we get into a little bit of trouble, right? So we may have impacted here along the road, or we may impact it on the customer side of it. And again, with the customer's portion, it's hard to really know where that might be going. Could be straight, could be angled, could be in any kind of different direction. So once that happens, like I said, it could last indefinitely without a problem, but there could be a blockage that occurs. And if that happens, how do they get damaged? Well, the sewer blockage occurs, an attempt is made to clear it with an auger, a snake, or a water jet. So a customer would usually, call a plumber, or they might go to the hardware store, their local rental agency, rent the equipment themselves. And I've got an example here in the middle of the typical types of clearing equipment that might be used. And they start pushing that down the line to try and clear that blockage, and they may inadvertently impact the gas line, which would allow gas to flow through that sewer system back up into the house, and that could create a serious problem. Also, it's important to note that it may not just go back up into that specific building. Once gas is getting into the sewer system, it could literally show up in other homes as well. So what's the risk? Undetected crossbores, obviously, sorry, looks like my internet connection was a little wonky there. But yeah, undetected crossbores pose a serious risk for fires, explosions, and here's an image on the right here of what, worst case scenario, what could happen. That can obviously result in property damage, injuries, loss of life. These have all occurred. There's been 20 such occurrences in North America. Crossbores are not obviously exclusive to natural gas, but that's what we'll be focusing on today. Any type of underground utility could impact the sewer line, and that creates its own risk. Obviously, a power line running through it is not something you want to run into either. But again, we'll be focusing on the effects of gas and what we're doing to prevent that from occurring. So one of the things, well, the most important thing that you definitely need to know, if you don't take anything else from this presentation, is if you do have a blocked sewer line beyond the outside wall of your building, you could damage it if you tried to clear it. So damaged gas lines can cause natural gas to leak in your home or building. Before you call a plumber or rent any motorized or water jetting equipment, make sure you call Ontario One Call if you're in Ontario to arrange a free sewer safety inspection. Really, really important. We will respond. Our target is to be there within 2 hours to make sure it's safe to proceed with clearing activities. And a little bit later, I'll walk through how all that kind of looks. Just to give you a sense of the program and how it's operating, we get about 13,000 one-call requests annually for this type of investigation. We do find on average about 100 crossbores every year. So it's a relatively small number. They're out there and we're actively trying to find them, but that's about the ratio that we're getting. 70% are showing up in municipally owned infrastructure. So that part within the right of way that I mentioned earlier, showed earlier, and 30% are showing up in the customer owned portion of those sewer lines. So the process, I'll take you through how this all looks, right? So the homeowner, plumber, municipality would identify a blockage, and hopefully, if we're getting the message across, they're going to call Ontario One Call and report that blocked sewer. Ontario One Call will dispatch our locate service provider, and they will respond 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Doesn't matter. They'll be out there to take a look at it and try and identify what's going on. So that locate service provider, when they show up, they're going to locate the sewer line, they're going to locate the gas line. They may have to do a video inspection. We've got push cameras. We can force down the line. We can look for those potential cross-bore locations, and then they will pass or fail that inspection depending on if there's clearance or not. If it fails, so in the event that the crossbore, or sorry, the sewer line and the gas line are, we either see it, we can tell there's an actual crossbore there, or we're suspecting is because we just can't get the proximity clearance that we're looking for, that would fail. And in that case, we will actually excavate the site, try and identify that location, that crossbore issue. If there is a crossbore, we'll repair and remediate it completely. But if we can tell that there's enough separation there that we're in good shape, then we would provide a clearance, and a homeowner or plumber or so forth could carry on with their clearing activities. So just some of the methods that we use here, to give you a bit of an idea of what this looks like. So as I mentioned, we're trying to get to a horizontal and vertical clearance between the natural gas line and the sewer line. So making sure we've got enough separation that we're comfortable saying, you're clear to go ahead. Part of that, we may use a video inspection. So the top left image is a camera system that we would typically use. It's a push camera again that we would put down the line and then look for evidence of what's going on, whether it's all clear or is there something impacting it. We also have an opportunity to use what we call launch from main robots. So these are really kind of cool. We put those down the main line of the sewer, run those down the main line, and then it can sort of shoot up the lateral portions and take camera and location of those lines, and it allows us to get in from the street side if we can't get access to the home or we're running into a blockage or some other problem there. And then the two images on the right side are what we would often see, right? So that one at the top is one where we didn't actually go right through the sewer, but damaged it enough that it blocked it off. And then the one on the bottom right is where we would typically see what a repair would look like. So the damaged portion's been removed and a new piece has been put in to correct it. So that's really the whole process of how we go through it, identify the conflict, excavate it, repair, and then again, provide that homeowner with the clearance to move forward. So, like I said, one thing to take away from this, but if nothing else, remember to call One Call before you clear at 1-800-400-2255. Really just keep an eye out for these types of things. If you see it, definitely use this service. If you're talking to your neighbors or your family members and they're mentioning they've got a problem, just try to communicate this to them. We'd really appreciate that. And again, direct the public and plumbers to Ontario One Call. And again, it's a free service, 365 days a year, 7 days a week. Never use mechanical clearing equipment until you do get that clearance. That's really, really important. And last but not least, that we are very, very much committed to this. This is not going away. This will be a program that will be in place indefinitely. So it's not one of those things where you have to worry about it not being there in the future. It will always be there. So that's really the reactive side of the program, but there is a proactive side as well. We're not really content just to wait for these things to materialize and react from that perspective. We really want to get out in front of them and find them before it ever becomes a blockage. Like I said, it could be years or decades before we have a problem. So we want to find them and remediate that situation long before a customer has a problem with their system. So to do that, we use analytics. We've got risk profiles. We create heat maps. We identify high potential areas where this might be occurring. That could be a high water table, It could be areas where we've seen this type of thing before. And again, we use all that data to create areas that we want to go in and do a proactive approach. So we work with our contractors, we screen them, we remediate the area and clear those locations we identified. And then after we do that, those results flow back into our analytics, and we use that to enhance the probability and again, zero in over and over again until we establish a pattern where we're using our resources in the most effective way possible. So we do that on an annual basis, and we're just getting started with it, but it's going quite well, and we will continue to zero in as we get more and more information through this program. So that's the sort of proactive side of things, and then we move into the preventative measures, because all that being said, so we've got, we're responding to them as they get created, or we identify them, we're trying to proactively find them or remove them, but that only works if you're not creating more of them. That's the last thing we want to do. So we need to stop it where it is, deal with what we've got, and not create any more. So how do we prevent this from happening? Well, as I said, we use a lot of directional drilling, trenches technology, which is great, but fundamentally, if we can open trench, we can avoid this altogether. So we're really trying to move back where we can to open trench style installations. It just eliminates a lot of that risk right out of the gate. But of course, that's not always possible. You still have to cross other infrastructure and streets and that sort of thing where you're not really likely to just open trench it. So in those cases, we're actually getting private sewer lateral locates. We're hiring our own contractors to go out and locate these sewer systems and make sure we understand exactly where they are, and then expose them to make sure we're not impacting them, which is a bit of an undertaking, but it's something that we just have to do. Typically, what we did in the past, a few years, we would focus on the specific address that we're servicing, but now we're actually expanding that. We're picking up homes in the general vicinity. So houses on either side, maybe across the street, could be up to 4 or 5 different homes that we would want to locate, just to make absolutely sure that we're not impacting any of the private sewer laterals. On top of that, we're expanding our daylight requirements at crossing points, again, making sure that we're looking for everything, or we're finding everything possible that might be in the way. And then if in the event that all else fails, we can't get access, or there's other challenges with all these types of activities, we will do post inspections. So come back after the fact and just validate with those homeowners that we couldn't get into to make sure that we did not impact their sewer in any way, shape, or form. So really, in a nutshell, we're just taking every possible precaution to make sure that we've got this under control. Probably the most exciting slide in the deck, I would say, is there's still room to grow on this. There's still opportunities to improve. So we've got a lot of future program enhancements underway. So one of which is coordinating and aligning our messaging with Ontario One Call and other utilities. We're not the only gas utility in Ontario, but we're all working together to try and deal with this potential problem. So one of the ways we can do that is leveraging each other and making sure our messaging is the same and we're coordinated in our communications. It's really important that the message is concise and consistent, and it's set up in such a way that homeowners are getting the same message from different sources, whether it's One Call, Enbridge, or any other utility for that matter in this space. You don't want different types of terminology and that sort of thing that might confuse people. So really important that we're aligned on that. Targeted advertisements, making sure we're reaching people at the right time in the right places. And part of that is education of trades and service providers, the rental companies, the hardware stores, the plumbing community. Those are all areas that we really want to enhance our communication with and make sure that we're getting the message through to them as much as possible. continue to develop relationships with municipalities. They're a very, very powerful partner for us in this. That might be the first call a homeowner makes is to the municipality. So we want to make sure they understand what might be there and what they may be walking into, and making sure they're taking full advantage of the service as well. And there's also an opportunity there to, I think, share information, which kind of leads into the next point, is to assess and implement advancements in technology. Everything's always improving. GPS is improving. One of the things we're looking at now is GPS-enabled locate devices, which would allow us to gather that GPS information of those private sewer lateral locates and maybe share that with municipalities or others that could take full advantage of it, including ourselves down the road. Coupled with that, GIS. GIS is another system that's always evolving. I think there was if there hasn't been, there probably will be some more presentations on that through this forum. But GIS is an opportunity to share that information and utilize it very, very effectively. So that's always improving, and that's something we definitely want to take advantage of. Pull behind camera inspections, as the name implies, what that is a camera system that can be attached to our pipe as we're directional drilling it or pulling it in. The camera can be attached to the drill head or to the pipe itself. And then what that will do is allow us to look at that bore that was created and see through that process if we've impacted anything. And that's going to be really, really handy for us in those scenarios where we were not able to get a clean locate, or we were not able to access the building to get a locate completed, that sort of thing. So almost like a last resort, but something that I think is very exciting. And again, just creates an additional opportunity to make sure that we haven't had any kind of crossbore created. And then last but not least, non-destructive clearing equipment is another option. So again, educating the industry, what types of things could be used that would be less disruptive than others. Some of those auger systems are pretty nasty. So if we can get to, much like excavating, non-destructive, hydrovacing, that sort of thing, there's an opportunity to do that here as well. So lots on the go, lots of different types of opportunities we could take advantage of. This is not an extensive list by any means, but gives you an idea that there's definitely room to improve. And as the world evolves, we want to take full advantage of all of that. So that is pretty much everything I have in my deck, and we can open it up to Q&A now. So, Juan, you with me?
Yes, I am. So let me have the questions here. Okay, I don't see here on the Q&A questions here. I only have an announce from Ophir, which is everyone knows the utility training session on November 3rd and 5. Special question for Gore Reynolds IO about the BTFA Building Transfer Faster Act. There is an anonymous attendee that he asks why this is not included in the engineering process when designing new lines. And that's the only questions here that I've seen. Okay, then I have one from Joe Lerulo. When gas is bored through shale, how is the contractor expected to locate by hand excavation?
Gas is bored through shale. How is the contractor expected to locate by hand excavation? Okay, that's more of a damage prevention question, but yeah, shale can definitely be challenging. I don't know if I have an easy answer for you there, Joe. We did do some work with the TSSA on hydrovac and some adjustments that could be made to that equipment to get through the shale. So there are applications where hydrovac could still facilitate that. Yeah, definitely. Shale's a problem if you've bored underneath it, for sure. That really doesn't apply to crossbores per se, but yeah, I would reach out to our damage prevention group on that one.
Okay. So we are doing a poll here. That's for Crossbore. So I don't know if you can see the poll right now on your screen. Yeah, let me know if you can see it. So you can fill out that one. There are some multiple choice questions and others are check boxes. So please, if you can fill out this poll.
Okay, well, that's going on. I think I see a couple more questions here.
Yes.
Who bears the cost of damages when a property owner damages a gas main, caught in a crossbore?
Yeah, same.
Yeah, so any damage that occurs, you know, through that process, we're going to respond and deal with that. So we would bear the cost of the repair to the sewer and that sort of thing.
So there is another one that is the cost of repairs all Enbridge cost to remedy the situation?
Yeah, again, every situation is different, but generally speaking, if we've impacted a utility, we would work to correct that. Now, that being said, it's not necessarily us that's impacted it. Sometimes it can go the other way. We've actually had scenarios where the sewer has been built around our pipeline. So, you know, you got to look at each case independently and determine how to correct it from that point.
And cross-border prevention is considered during the engineering for new mains?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, subsurface utility engineering, you know, is definitely a big part of all of our installations today. We try to get as much information about where existing infrastructure is, including sewers. We work with municipalities on that, and again, getting those private sewer lateral locates goes a long way to make sure we don't have any future impacts. And that really fundamentally, as I mentioned in the presentation, is a big part of this. We just don't want to create any more, because then, you know, the list just keeps growing, and we definitely don't want that. So yeah, a lot of pre-ench work to make sure that we can minimize disruption, and part of that's you know, keeping to minimum depths wherever we can as well. Sewer systems tend to be a lot deeper than what our system would be at, but that's not always the case. So we can extend that proximity clearance by keeping to a minimum depth wherever possible. Now, you're always going to have some, you know, restrictions and some requirements depending on where you are within the right of way or the municipality or the other infrastructure that's around you, that might prohibit us going to, you know, as shallow as we can. But generally speaking, that's where we want to be, in that shallower profile. Because again, sewers are deeper, and the further we are from them vertically, the better.
And I have one compliment from Andrew Oliveira. Great presentation, well done. So thank you, Andrew.
Hi there. I'm just wondering, if you haven't done the poll, if you could quickly give us your feedback, that would be great.
Ophir has a question. My old friend Ophir, what do we got here? When you're doing closed circuit TV inspections, are you sharing the data with municipalities, and is there a possible cost sharing for CCTV between the city and Enbridge to do coding for conduit assessment? That's a great question, Ophir. Yeah, we definitely want to share it now. As you, I know Ophir, you already know this, but those files are large. So just moving those files around is a challenge. But right now we are in the process of looking at what sort of infrastructure we need to have in place to get that information, those video files, into us from our locate service providers, and subsequently working with those municipalities to find out how can we share it with them, because it's invaluable. We've actually invested a lot of money to have those camera systems put in place and to get that information completed. So we definitely don't want to leave it on a desk somewhere. So we're absolutely looking forward to that.
And and Ophir, our friend Ophir, also said that great presentation. By the way, I sent you recent, not Enbridge, Crossbores.
Okay, thanks, Ophir.
Yeah, no, and I myself share the same concerns as Ophir has. I mean, being on a consultant side, the way that CCTV files are like it's kind of having a bottleneck, because we ended having, or you ended having like enormous size of files there, and that would be like a bottleneck. There should be something. I don't know. I mean, I'm wondering if technology will allow us to have more like data in this sense to be shared, you know.
Yeah, it's a great point, because as you mentioned, those files are massive, and you could be 15-20 minutes of footage working your way down the line. So, you know, finding a really efficient, effective way to kind of trim that down and be able to share like just really what's relevant within that. I think we got a little bit of work to do there, for sure.
There are two other questions here. Okay. During the municipal approved phase, is there anything that can be provided to avoid these conflicts?
Yeah, well, just as accurate information as possible on the sewer infrastructure would definitely be helpful. And the state of it too, by the way. There's a lot of areas where it's not in the best repair. There's blockages, there's like a high flow rate, which can prohibit our ability to get, you know, lines through it. Those robots are great, but if the mainline sewer doesn't provide access, or there's blockages within that portion, you know, we're dead in the water on that one as well. So access points are really important to know, and so that we can get in there where we need to. But yeah, depths, locations, all valuable.
Thanks. I have a last question here from Adakayi from T2. It's will the general utility industry have access to the information from all the information from Enbridge infrastructure, data collection improvements, or will it be for Enbridge in-house use?
Yeah, good question. I would love to enter into a conversation on how we can share this information. Actually, it was funny. I've been in a number of jobs. I used to be in damage prevention years ago, and I moved on to a couple other roles. But so I think it was 2010, I left the damage prevention group here and then moved into operations and subsequently safety after that. But I do remember, I think it was 2009 or 2010, I wrote a best practice for the ORCGA, or submitted one at any rate, on the sharing of this type of information. So it is a best practice, which is now the Canadian Common Ground Alliance, on the sharing of data so that it can be used on both sides, right? If we collect private sewer lateral information, we'd love to share that with the municipality, and conversely, we'd like to be able to get that back, or other utilities may take advantage of it down the road. So absolutely, we are definitely open to sharing this type of information. It's one of those scenarios where if we're all sharing this type of data, then we're all going to benefit from it. It shouldn't be proprietary, in my personal opinion. So there's different opportunities to do that. Again, I talked about GPS, talked about GIS. Those are tools that theoretically could be used, but given that we all have different platforms, there can be challenges there. But I think those are conversations we definitely need to start having on how we can share the information broadly and make it accessible and available to whoever needs it.
So thank you, Steve. So if no more questions, just last words here. So any presentation that have been granted permission to post can be found on our website, roadmanagement.ca, at the end of this month. And the Road Management Committee is always looking for industry involvement. So again, if you're interested, please email info@roadmanagement.ca. And I would like to thank Steve and also the webinar delegates, Steve Murphy, Lori, and the people from the OPWA for this webinar series. So thank you so much.
Thank you, appreciate it.